Welcome back to a brand new Clash Royale video, guys. My name is Patrick, aka Chief Pat, and today we're going to be hopping into the balancing changes that were announced yesterday on ClashRoyale.com, and they're going to be coming out tomorrow inside of the game. So I'm going to go through each and every one for you guys, tell you exactly what it means for those cards, and what type of meta we should be seeing going into the future of Clash Royale for weeks to come. Now, the very first change that they talked about on their blog post is a card that we've wanted to see touched on for a while. Previously, it used to be the worst card inside of the entire game, and now it's considered one of the most oppressive and annoying, especially when it gets over leveled, and that's going to be the Royal Giant. Now, they announced the Royal Giant is going to have its hit speed decreased to 1.7 seconds from 1.5 seconds. That's about 11% nerf on its damage. If you just divide 0.2 by 1.7, you get that. So yeah, it's a pretty significant nerf with 11% nerf to the Royal Giant's damage, and also they announced that they're going to make his first attack a little bit slower. So the Royal Giant definitely needed to be touched on. Personally, I think there's a lot of problems with the Royal Giant about its playstyle, and the fact that it's a common card makes it really easy for people to overlevel. They can just request commons, and they can find commons for the Royal Giant fairly easily, making it so people in middle arenas just have, you know, a bunch of average level cards, and then they overlevel the Royal Giant, making it almost impossible for their opponents to deal with. I actually think the Royal Giant is fine when card levels are even. There's definitely plenty of ways to deal with the Royal Giant in that case, but the fact that it gets overleveled really makes it an annoying card, and hopefully this 11% nerf will help out as far as its damage goes. It's still extremely tanky, which you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to bring a mini P.E.K.K.A. You're going to have to do something like that, but the decreased hit speed should help out just a bit, and I'm excited to see how it changes the Royal Giant going forward into the future. Now, the most popular card inside of Clash Royale is the Zap card right now, and obviously in need of a nerf, they announced that the stun duration for the Zap is going to be decreased to half a second from 1 second. So personally for me, while that might seem somewhat significant, I don't think it's going to change many people using the Zap. I think the Zap is so valuable in the fact that, number one, it makes it so troops like the Minion Horde are able to get one shot by your Crown Towers, and you can use it to take out Spear Goblins and Goblins and the Fire Spirits. Obviously, that's not going to change with this nerf. But also the fact that it resets things like the Inferno Tower. It resets the aggro on your tower. So let's say, you know, you have a troop running towards the tower that's about to die, you zap it, and the tower locks onto another troop. That is just so insanely valuable. That's not going to change with the Zap. It's strictly going to be its stun duration time being reduced by half. So hopefully this makes it so other cards are more, I guess, more appealing for people to use, like arrows. You don't see a whole lot of arrows anymore at all, so we'll see if that changes anything. But in my opinion, I still think Zap is going to be the most popular spell card, or one of the two most popular spell cards inside of the entire game, alongside the Poison, which I will talk about more in just a second. Now, third up is going to be the Princess. Of course, people are getting so sick of the legendary cards being the strongest cards inside of the game. I wonder why. But anyways, I digress. The Princess had its area damage reduced by 25%. So you guys know the Princess is so good at clearing things and mass amounts of units, whether it's skeletons, goblins, fire spirits, anything like that. The Princess just does so much area damage, making it so valuable and so reliable at cleaning things up. They decided, instead of going after her damage, which I think is a pretty good call, they reduced the radius that it does damage, and overall it should make the Princess a fairly weaker card. I like this change a lot. It doesn't change a whole lot about the Princess's identity, while meanwhile making her weaker. Maybe could still use a damage nerf, I'm not exactly sure, but still it looks like she should be balanced a little bit more with these changes. So overall, I give a thumbs up to the 25% radius decrease. Very creative, and is something that should have happened. Now, next up, as far as the legendaries go, the Ice Wizard, one of the staples of the Payfecta deck, had its hit points decreased by 5%. For me, I don't see this changing too much. It's still not going to be killed by a fireball, and the Ice Wizard's value is in the fact that it does such an insane amount of slow onto oncoming units like the Hog Rider, the mini P.E.K.K.A., the P.E.K.K.A., whatever. So this nerf is almost negligible for me, to where I don't care about it too much. The Ice Wizard is still going to be strong, and that's pretty much it. Now, next up, the Miner, everyone's favorite card. Personally, maybe my least favorite card inside of the entire game. I think it's ridiculous that on my level 7 account, I'm dealing with Miners. It's stupid, but the Miner had its deploy time increased to 1 second from 0.7 seconds, and its hit points decreased by 6%. Yeah, they actually had an unintentional change to the deploy time, which made it so he was way harder to react to, and they decided to change that back to a single second from 0.7 seconds, so that should help out a lot for whenever someone drops it on an elixir collector or your princess or whatever they drop it on, even just your tower. It gives you more time to react and place a card to counter it, as well as its hit points are decreased by 6%. You guys remember me complaining about the miner getting buffed in that one update, and they decided to take that back and put it down a notch. I don't know why it was ever buffed. It was just a card that people didn't realize how to play, and I don't think that's reason for them to buff a card, but it looks like now that its usage rate is insanely high and it's such an annoying card inside of the game, they reversed that. I forget if it was like 4 or 6% as far as the HP buff that they gave it previously, but taking it down a notch by 6% should help out, and it's still going to be a ridiculously strong card. It was already a strong card before they buffed it, and now it's just still going to be a stable card inside of many decks, but not as oppressive as it used to be. Now, one of everyone's least favorite epics that you could get at the beginning of the game, the Baby Dragon, had its hit speed increased to 1.6% from 1.8%. So effectively, that's around a 10% buff, just doing the math in my head. So that should fare pretty well for people trying to use the Baby Dragon. I still don't think it's going to make the Baby Dragon something that you see in later levels. There's just too many cards that are better than it right now at providing that splash damage, but at earlier arenas, I definitely think this will help out. If I was in arena like 2, 3, and 4, I would definitely use the Baby Dragon. Probably even before these changes. You guys know I played it on my second account a lot, but with this buff right here, it should help out just a bit at those lower arenas, but I still don't expect it to see too much gameplay at the top, just because other cards provide so much value. It works inside of certain air decks, but still, I don't think it's going to be a card that's top tier just yet. Now, next up is going to be the Dark Prince, which had its damage increased by 7.5%. Pretty straight up, they said that they didn't feel it was on par with other 4 elixir options, like the Mini P.E.K.K.A. or the Valkyrie, obviously. You've got the Mini P.E.K.K.A., which does insane single target damage. You've got the Valkyrie, which does great splash damage. The Dark Prince sort of has a hard time finding that. His edge is the speed that he gets once he starts speeding up. So giving him 7.5% more damage should help out and make him a more attractive option inside of the game. Now, a card that I think is mega interesting and one that we're going to see a lot of is going to be the Bowler. They completely reworked the Bowler, and in my opinion, I already thought the Bowler was strong. It was just that he was under-leveled inside of a lot of people's decks, but if you played him right, he definitely worked out pretty well. But the Bowler had its elixir cost decreased to 5 from 6, and since they gave it a pretty significant decrease of elixir, they had to decrease its hit points by 7% and its damage by 10%. But overall, that is a massive buff for the Bowler, just given the elixir cost decrease, making it a much more viable option. And personally, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Bowler inside of the game. I know a lot of really good players were already picking up on how strong the Bowler was, and this is only going to make him better, and hopefully we'll be seeing him a lot more inside of the meta. Now, one of the most fascinating changes inside of this balance is going to be to the Lumberjack. Now, personally, I thought the Lumberjack didn't really fit a playstyle. He was less reliable than a Rage Spell, he didn't do as much damage to the Mini P.E.K.K.A., and he was too fast to get a really good push going for him. You know, normally when you start up a big push, you put a Giant at the back, and the Giant takes a long time to lug his fat butt down the lane to where you can start saving up elixir to put more troops behind him. But the problem is you would like to play the Lumberjack like that, but he was already, decently fast. They decided to change his speed to very fast from fast, so the Lumberjack's going to be even faster inside of the game. They increased his hit speed to 0.7 seconds from 1.1 seconds, and they decreased his damage by 23%. But still, overall, with that hit speed increase, it's going to make him even stronger than he was before. He's going to be a little squirrel that's just excitedly running down the lane, dealing damage, and dropping a Rage Spell towards the end. Now, personally, I don't see how it's going to work. He's really going to be he's definitely not going to be that playstyle I just talked about where you play him in the back and you save up to go on a big push. Instead, he's going to fly down the lane and try to make his way to towers and, take out and do damage in the middle of stuff. I don't know how to judge this. I feel like it's a massive buff to the Lumberjack as far as pure stats go. As far as his speed goes, it's going to be interesting to see how you can actually play him to synergize with that Rage Spell, because you do want him to die eventually to get that Rage Spell buff for the rest of your units, but the fact that he moves so fast makes it hard to actually make that happen. So I don't know where the Lumberjack's going to go. I feel like he could be ridiculously awkward to play, or he could be really strong. Who just knows right now? So speaking of another legendary card that got a change, guys, they're changing almost every single legendary card inside of the game except for the Lava Hound. The Log is going to have its cast time decreased by 66%, so it's much quicker to play, and its travel speed is increased by 20%. So overall, they said this change is going to make the Log more consistent and reliable. Personally, I still don't know why this card is a legendary card, but you know, that's besides the point of these balancing changes, I guess. But still, the Log should be a more attractive option. I still don't think people are going to play it over the Zap spell, over anything like that. It needs to be able to knock back troops like, you know, the P.E.K.K.A, the Mini P.E.K.K.A, the Dark Prince, not the Mini P.E.K.K.A, the Dark Prince and the Prince. A lot of people were talking about that being a nice change to it. I agree, but still, I don't think the Log is going to be versatile enough to replace the Zap or the Fireball or anything like that. So really, we'll see what happens. I think the Log still works inside of a lot of decks, don't get me wrong. I've seen people play it to success, but I think those decks are going to continue to play it, but I don't really see that many people picking it up over the Zap inside of other compositions. Now, the Golem, honestly, a card we haven't seen too much recently, had its hit and its death damage increased by 5%, as well as its hit points increased by 1%, and the little Golemites had their damage increased by 8%, and its hit points increased by 3.2%. Now, Golem is a pretty polarizing card. Usually I feel like it's really strong or it's really weak. It hasn't really found a center, and with these changes, they're looking to find that center. I know that way back when in beta, the Golemites used to be really tanky, and honestly, I thought that was obnoxious. I felt like the Golem should be the extremely tanky one, and the Golemites just provided a little bit of value towards the end, but they decided to do a pretty significant buff to the Golemites. So as long as the Golemites don't feel too tanky, I feel like these changes are definitely justified. So we'll see what happens with the Golem, and if people pick it up more inside of the meta. Now, the P.E.K.K.A had its damage increased by 5%. Guys, we might be seeing some P.E.K.K.A double prints again, everyone's favorite meta from way earlier inside of the game. The P.E.K.K.A, 5% damage increase. It's going to be better at one-shotting stuff, and they also decided to make the first attack for the P.E.K.K.A happen a bit quicker. So the P.E.K.K.A is going to slap you right across the face as soon as it locks onto you that very first time. So safe to say the P.E.K.K.A should be an interesting card going forward, and I definitely expect it to pop up in a lot more decks. Now, raise your hand if you've seen a Tombstone or heard of a Tombstone in a while. Besides different type of like Mortar and Expo decks or interesting stuff like that, you don't see too many Tombstones. It's just, you know, not as good of a card as some other cards inside of the game, but they decided to increase the spawn speed of the Tombstone by 0.4 seconds from 2.9 to 2.5, giving it a little bit more utility on both offense and defense. Interesting change. We'll have to see if more people use the Tombstone, but I feel like for me, I use the cannon to stop things, like the Prince and the Hog Rider, which typically the Tombstone is strong against. So I don't really see that changing with these changes here, but it probably still could be used inside of a lot of those Mortar decks, Expo decks, and maybe this will give them, that actually is a pretty decent buff to those type of decks. So congratulations on making those decks more powerful. Okay, well, next up, the final changes are going to be for the Archers and the Prince. They're going to get a 2% damage increase to fix some inconsistency when they fire against Goblins or Barbarians. Goblins for the Archers, Barbarians for the Prince, just making it so it's a little bit more smooth. So the Archers weren't one-shotting Goblins at certain levels, and the Prince wasn't one-shotting Barbarians when it was sped up at certain levels, when it should have been doing those things. So they increased everything by 2%. And that's pretty much all it is for those changes. Well, safe to say there's some interesting stuff inside of these balancing changes, guys. Personally, for me, I think there's a very glaring absence in nerfs to both the Giants as well as the... Actually, I don't even know if the Giant needs a nerf. It's hard for me to say because I feel like the Giant is over-leveled when I play people on my Chief Pat 2 account, but I think the Poison spell is way too strong inside of the game. I know I have a level 1 Poison spell and I still do pretty well with it. I think the Poison spell simply works out a little bit too well. Maybe it could use a small radius decrease as far as the Poison goes, sort of like the free spell got nerfed a couple of months ago, but pretty interesting changes that didn't happen to both the Giant and the Poison spell. I expected a small nerf maybe to the Giant and then a pretty chunky one to the Poison spell, but with that not coming out inside of the game and those being two of the best cards inside of the entire game right now, it's safe to say you're going to be seeing a lot of those decks, I feel like, going forward into the future, even more than what you guys are seeing right now. But that's going to do it for these changes, guys. Well, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you like them? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Are there certain cards you wish they touched on or that they didn't touch on? Just let me know in the comment section below. Again, these are going to be coming out tomorrow inside of the game, and it's safe to say it should shake up a lot of the different decks that come out. So I'll make sure to tell you guys what some of the best decks are going forward into the future, and that is going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you drop a like. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.